Welcome to Horror Melee.
A podcast born of a group of people who love to talk and debate horror.
Every episode, one of us picks a movie to review, and the rest of us must either suffer or enjoy that pick.
Turn your brain off and enjoy.
You know what it's like? Your dog starts looking up at the ceiling, or they start looking at like the corner.
Yeah.
And then and then you're like, "What are you looking at? Should I be worried?"
Yeah.
Well, see, Steph, you and I have dogs that do that. You know, Holly's kids just look in the corner. They're like, "Hey," and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, they just look in the corner and start laughing. I'm like, what the fuck?
Welcome to Horror Melee. On this episode, we have Holly
Hello.
and Patrick.
Hi. I don't know how to do a New Zealand accent. I've been trying so hard. I'm Peter Jackson, from New Zealand. It's just like I just fluctuate my voice.
Well, on this episode, we are going to talk about 1987's Bad Taste. The population of a small town disappears and is replaced by aliens that chase human flesh for their intergalactic fast food chain. Written and directed by Peter Jackson, stars Tony Potter as Ozzy, Pete O'Hearn as Barry, Craig Smith as Giles, Mike Minute as Frank, and Peter Jackson as Derek / Robert / a bunch of other stuff.
We've got trouble.
Good wine.
Right, we're on our way.
Tomorrow we're having you for lunch.
What are we gonna do if we're spotted, Frank?
Go, Frank! Jeez, the real to hit.
Derek was right all along.
Look down. That's the end of those weekend cowboys. Bankers.
God's sake, Oz, put that thing down. Let's get in there and hit the leader.
Derek!
You alright?
Get the launcher!
The budget for this movie is around $11,000 to $25,000. There's conflicting reports, and I don't know if that's New Zealand currency or U.S. currency.
U.S.
Okay. And it was released in December on the 11th in 1987 in New Zealand. In the U.S., it was released June 16th, 1989. The person who picked this horror comedy was Patrick.
Hey. Yeah, I picked this movie because I fucking love Peter Jackson. This movie has been recommended to me more times than I could count on my hand. So I guess 6. And I just decided this would be a good time to jump into it. It was free on YouTube, free on Amazon, and you could also watch it on...
I watched it on Tubi.
So multiple places to watch it. I thought it'd be a good kickoff, to this season 3, since it's easy to find, easy to watch. Well, easy to watch, quotations. But yeah, I was kind of excited to jump into this movie. So let's start from the opening of the very first thing you see is the Queen of England, which is a Queen of England and the Shadow Man, who kind of reminded me of Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Oh my god,
yes. Yes.
It took them 4 years to make, and there was a lot of reshoots. And I think this is one of the scenes that was not a reshoot, it was like they had a little budget, so they added it in because it kind of didn't make I mean, it kind of made sense with a lot of the movie, but it's just this guy sitting in a chair, and someone calls him and says there's an alien invasion going on in a small town in New Zealand, and that they need to send in the military, but this man doesn't want to send in the military. He wants to send in the boys. So he just picks up the phone and dials the boys, which was fantastic. What was he holding in this opening scene that he was smoking the cigarette with?
It was like a cigarette that had a Band-Aid around it to a finger. And then he had like another finger that hit the like stop and start on the recordings of the phone calls about the alien invasion.
Yeah, it looked like he had no hands, so he had like these finger things that did various tasks for him. Like, this one is my smoking finger. This one is my dialing finger.
It made no sense whatsoever. I was dying of laughing. As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh man, I am in for a fucking ride right now. Early Peter Jackson's movies are just batshit crazy. From this one to Meet the Feebles to Heavenly Creatures, Brain Dead.
Remember that we talked about it on a previous episode?
Yes, ages ago. I was just a mere boy when we talked about those. But, from that opening scene, I was, like, pretty excited for the movie. And then, we go and we meet the boys finally after this. And the boys consist of Frank, Ozzy, Barry, and my man Derek, who Peter Jackson plays.
I love the way that they say his name. It's I can't do it, but that accent saying Derek.
Derek.
Come on, Derek! Get out of there fast, Derek!
I can't do that. I'm a Derek.
Derek's, don't run.
Derek.
So we meet the boys, and they're in this town, and they're getting chased around by the aliens, which are just men in blue shirts. All the aliens just wear the Macy's special blue shirt. I guess they just wear those blue shirts just because of budget. I guess it was a good idea.
Yeah, like, all right, we're going to take this form. Let's just buy in bulk. Was that their thinking?
I imagine when they started filming this, Peter Jackson was 22. So I imagine he was like, I got $15 in my pocket. What can we get?
That's something that's so interesting about this movie is you have these amazing special effects.
Yeah.
And then you have some clearly funny homemade stuff it reminds me of homemade videos I would make with my sister.
So, well, I mean, this movie started out as a 10-minute short called Roast of the Day. He filmed with the 16mm camera that has no way of capturing audio. So everything in this movie is dubbed over. All the voices, all the actors, it's all dubbed over. Most of it by Peter Jackson himself. And he started this and he was like, well, I shot this 10-minute short for this whole year. I can't wait to put it together. And he's like, well, I got an hour of footage here. I should just turn the rest of this into a movie. So he got some investors to come in to help finish the short. But I can only imagine the scenes that we saw that look like the very home video-esque were the original part of the Roast of the Day short. So I don't understand how investors saw that and was like, you know what? I know this doesn't have audio, but this is potential right here.
Yes, all the dialogue in the film was dubbed in post-production, and yes, it was part of it was the footage had no sound with it because it had been filmed on Peter Jackson's own 60mm camera, but the New Zealand Film Commission funded the remainder of the film, which I think is really, really cool that New Zealand Film Commission is a thing and he was able to get funding for it. Not that he had to like go and start a Kickstarter or start like a GoFundMe.
Sell his kidney.
But Jackson actually hired a sound camera when he got the funding.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But apparently neither Jackson nor his crew were very skilled with sound recording and most of the dialogue was unusable. So they had to do it all in post-production.
It's so funny, Peter Jackson's this fucking massive A-list director. Like, when you watch this movie, he really only wanted to do special effects. Like, he got into
Yes.
this to do special
yeah,
effects.
that's very apparent.
And they're good. They're good special effects. The practical
They
effects in
are.
this movie are fantastic.
Yeah.
Just needs to work on the writing and the camera movements.
I will say that, like, the first 5-10 minutes of the movie had me splitting my sides laughing. It was one after the other. All their cute little, like, side comments, you know, when they're going through the towns that the aliens can overtake, because the aliens start in Kaihoro, which, side note, Kaihoro is actually a Maori term that can be translated to either food town or fast food. It reminded me of Monty Python. A lot of goofy comedy, you know,
Yeah.
little side comments and side jokes.
Yeah, and some of those side jokes were so funny. I mean, he makes a joke about Jonestown. He makes a joke about Charles Manson. He makes, like,
Yeah.
there's some really
Yeah.
funny jokes. But it's just in that first 10 minutes, like, we see Inspector Claw from Inspector Gadget. Then we meet Barry and Derek, or however you fucking say his name with his accent. Derek. They say their one-liners, and then they're chased for 45 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, that's the thing where they like round up these aliens.
They capture one who's hanging off of a cliff. Derek's watching and holding this guy who's hanging off the cliff, who the guy hanging off the cliff is also Peter Jackson. So Jackson's holding himself on the cliff. And then his friend's down at the beach getting chased by a mob of them.
And then everyone's like, ooh, Derek is like such a weirdo. He's such a funny guy. And they're like, Derek, whatever you do, like, don't touch this alien that we captured. And then Derek starts to, like, hammer a nail in his foot or something.
Yeah, trying to get him to talk.
Yeah.
I love just, like, from the get-go, from shooting the alien in the head to Derek nailing the guy's foot in with foot-long spike, just how gory this movie is. I mean, none of the blood looks real whatsoever, but
Yeah,
it's so gory.
All the blood is like Italian 70s Giallo bright
Yes.
red blood.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of a Giallo mixed with the amount of gore you would get watching Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, some people said that he was inspired by Evil Dead.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, it's just, it amazes me that when you see these early works that Peter Jackson has, it is so much full of blood and gore and practical effects. And then he does Lord of the Rings. And it just like, he got a budget. Like, I fucking love Lord of the Rings. I watch every year I watch the trilogy. I fucking love them.
Okay, Patrick, how did he get Lord of the Rings? Because he's like a goofy, like, loves toilet humor and goriness. And, like, how do
Yeah.
you go from bad taste to Lord of the Rings?
He's also like a savant with Lord of the Rings. Like, favorite fantasy book, right? So he's read it so many times, and somehow Lord of the Rings tried to get made in the 70s, and they were like, this movie cannot be made. It's impossible to get made. And then somehow he got involved with the script process. He ended up helping with the script and the production, and it eventually just came over to him. He got it on his plate. Because, I mean, at that point, he had 5 films under his belt, and even this movie played at Cannes, and people fucking loved it. So his name was getting passed around.
Mm-hmm.
Which I also find so interesting because it's 1980. He's in New Zealand. Movie distribution isn't like what it is today.
No.
But he was still able to see all these movies, see like Evil Dead and stuff, which the Evil Dead, like, how is that movie getting distributed all the way to New Zealand?
So it's funny, the New Zealand Film Commission was literally, they were not exporting films. It was just pretty much importing films. Peter Jackson is pretty much the sole reason they have such a big film industry now. He is literally
That's awesome.
the heart of New Zealand film, because he set up all his, I mean, Weta Studios is there, which does so much in the film industry now, and his other production company, I forget the name of it's there, and without him, there would be really no New Zealand film production. no one would understand how beautiful New Zealand was to film in, and it wouldn't be like what Iceland's becoming now in today's films, right? New Zealand was in the early 2000s and the 90s. I think Peter Jackson is just, he wanted to have fun making props with his friends, and then somehow he's like, I'm worth $600 million. I don't know.
But like, how does like a 25-year-old get his homemade horror movie into Cannes in the 80s?
Yeah.
Watching interviews with Peter Jackson, you know, he seems like he's a super nice guy, and I think he's just one of those people that you could like sit next to and just be like, oh, I'm just gonna talk, and this guy's just gonna talk back to me, and then we're just gonna have a conversation. Now, why am I in your car? Like, he's just probably one of those people who just...
He's one of those people that has that it factor.
Yeah, which, good for anyone that could do that, because that's exhausting.
Yeah, because I can't.
Yeah. I think the 80s were, like, kind of the perfect time for this, because the time of C and B horror films, late 70s and 80s, right? Those are, like, that's like the big time. So I think it was just that perfect time. He was there at the perfect time, and he happened to make something that, you know, probably got a small cult following in New Zealand.
Did people know his story of making it when it did go to Cannes? Like, that he was only making it on weekends? It took him 4 years.
I'm sure it was talked about, but I think it got more publicity in Cannes because the Australian Film Commission banned it from being played in Australia.
Yeah, because I was wondering if just that tenacity mixed with how good the effects are was enough to be like, hey, look at this. Like, look at what this person can do.
I watched on YouTube like a BBC special on him.
Oh, wow.
It's called How Bad Taste Was Made with Good Taste.
Oh, seriously? I would love to watch that.
This little documentary that the BBC did in 1988 because his film got to Cannes or cons. What do they call it?
Cons.
Anyway.
Fuck 'em.
Whatever. I'm American. I live in Texas. It's Cannes.
K-A-N-S.
But yeah, the BBC did like a special on him in 1988, and they're like, good taste made bad taste, and they talks about, it's like interviews him, and it even like goes through like how the movie was made in like 20 minutes.
Oh, I'll have to watch that.
I think that's gotta be kind of the main reason why this movie, I won't say took off, but why so many people did see this movie was because there was probably this like, oh, he made it for this much money. It was banned in Australia. The BBC did a small little thing on him, like, oh, this has got to be great. It's a bloody horror alien movie.
Yeah. If there's one thing people love, it's the word banned.
Yeah.
I have to see it.
It's like when you read a book in high school because the school doesn't want you to read it. It's the same shit.
I'm such a rebel. Look at me reading this book.
So it's incredibly impressive that a little
absolutely
22-year-old Peter Jackson did this movie, got it to Cannes, got like a special on BBC, and then all of a sudden filmed Lord of the Rings.
But also, I think it's more impressive that he was able to get this movie to Cannes because this movie literally has no script or plot whatsoever. There's literally no script for this movie.
So you have this alien invasion, you have this team of like New Zealanders called the Boyz, but then there's also this bill collector or this bread collector. Like, what happens when shit hits the fan? This guy Giles, who's like going around collecting these coins in envelopes that people tape to their doors. But unfortunately, the entire town of Kaihoro has been kidnapped by these aliens because these aliens are going to harvest humans back to their planet and cook them up in a fast food style situation.
Well, they weren't really kidnapped, because they do show what they did with the town, and they were just in some boxes in the kitchen.
Yep. They fit in just a few boxes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So going back to our friend Derek, And as Derek was like hammering a nail trying to get this alien that they caught to talk, he gets free.
So wait. He's nailing the guy's foot in. The alien screams. Those aliens come and chase Derek. Derek pulls out a machine gun because Derek's don't run. And then he machine guns down the aliens that were chasing him. But the one alien that was hanging off the cliff somehow breaks free and pushes Derek off the cliff, which that dummy that they had that roll off the cliff, why was it in this weird, like...
seated position?
Yeah, the entire time. It's like it was just like they rolled him into a ball and just rolled him down the cliff.
This is the best momentum for him to fall.
Yeah.
Maybe because then he wouldn't look like floppy.
Yeah. But you could easily, as soon as he started falling, it's like him going like this, and then it cuts, and he's just rolled up into a ball, stiff as could be.
I loved when he was shooting his machine gun, and then he ran out of bullets.
Yes.
So then he just made the noise. And I was like, oh my god, it's like watching a Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny cartoon.
You know why he did like that scene where he's making the noise? Because in the roast of the day, Peter Jackson had anyone shooting the guns shake the guns and make the noise. So in post, he could add it in.
Well, bravo for being able to use it.
Yeah, I know.
Is that like an homage to like himself? Because I thought that was super funny when Derek turned around and he didn't have it, but he went and then the alien was like, "Oh my god, I'm getting hit," but the alien was like, "No, I'm not hit." That was just him mimicking the sound of it. Like that was so funny.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was so hard for Derek to pull anything out of that backpack he had, but like that whole scene was just like it was a very comical scene. But there is a point where it's just like too much. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, no,
I
when he
agree.
was struggling, even like when he pulled out that little sword, I was like, where did that come from? No, the part that made me laugh the most was when he was pulling out weapons and then he pulled out his lunch. I'm like, the mom in me relates to this so much. Like I'm constantly like shifting through a backpack, like struggling to pull things out and like, here's something. Oh, here's lunch. Here's a snack.
But eventually, the alien is able to kill Derek, and he falls to his death.
Okay, so here's
Kill.
the thing that really annoyed me.
Yeah.
What?
All the scenes that Derek falls to his death. We think he's dead. He cracks his skull open.
Pretty bad.
There are these whole following scenes of Derek opening up and shoving brains back into his brains.
Yeah.
As if
Yes.
you cut like a pie slice in the back of his head, and it's him constantly like being more off of his rocker. That just fell flat for me. I mean, his whole like, ooh, I keep shoving brains back into my head, and I put a hat on and my brains fall out, or I gotta like take my belt and tie it around my head.
It got old.
Yeah.
Derek's character to me got old. I watched the movie 3 times. First time I watched it, I was as high as Everest. The second time, I watched it at work, so I watched it at double the speed so I could get through it during my lunch. Nothing changed. Every time I watched it, it was the same parts that I laughed at in the first time. I laughed at again, and every part after I laughed, I'd just be like, well, I got like 25 minutes till the next scene, I guess. And I just watched them walk and run through grass.
Yeah.
There were so many run scenes or walk scenes or chase scenes that I was
Well,
like,
okay, well, maybe
Ugh.
that's how he got Lord of the Rings, because that's just all walking too.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, there's a lot of like when Derek was like hanging off the cliff and he's holding onto the rope and he's just looking at it, I was like, man, I just picture Frodo and his plight. And
I will say there, I mean, as a director, he's very creative with his shots, and he made a lot of his own equipment, which is super
Yeah.
impressive.
And
Yeah.
I will say, like, another thing I think why Peter Jackson kind of took off more than other directors is, like he just said stuff, he's so creative with the shots. Like, other directors at the time, and still to this day, like, there's shots where people are like, oh, that's a Peter Jackson shot. He, like, coined it, and it's his own. It's like, oh, that's a Martin Scorsese shot. That's a James Cameron shot. That's a Peter Jackson shot. Like, he's now on that level with that. And it starts here. You can see the development of it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of his shots where they're coined are just because he wasn't a director. He was a practical effects guy, and he wasn't trying to get a shot. He was trying to get the shot done to get to the next practical effect. So it was like this weird, like, I just want to get to the next scene. So it's kind of not rushed, but you do get these weird, quick shots.
And you also, he had to be creative about his shots because he had his friends and himself starring in the movie. So he had to make it look way more intense than what it actually was. So he was really good with, like, smoke and mirrors, let's say, you know, and building. I gotta say, like, the scene where the bread collector Giles is driving away from the alien Robert, that was a pretty tense scene. Like, I was like, ooh, I feel some suspense here. You know, he did a good job of, like, building suspense.
Yeah, and you had said earlier that you watched it and then you were trying to watch it through the lens of, you know, look at where he ended up. And that's exactly what I had to do too, because this kind of humor isn't my humor. So, and because of all the, you know, chase scenes, it was longer than it needed to be. It was kind of difficult for me to watch. I just had a hard time getting through it. But then second time, third time I watched it, I was like, no, like, look at where he ended up and, like, what he was able to do with the budget that he had for, like, Lord of the Rings, and what he was able to do by himself with nothing.
Yeah.
And then he got a little something and he was able to do more with it. And I was just, I was trying to watch it with more appreciation than I would have.
Yeah.
I think a lot of from this movie to, you know, Brain Dead, to Meet the Feebles, Heavenly Creatures, The Frighteners, like, all those movies have the same type of humor and style, but it, you know, it just gets better and better. Like you said, it just got more and more money, so it got better and better, but it still has that same type of humor and stuff until he gets to Lord of the Rings. After Lord of the Rings and everything after that, it's just, he's such a different director.
Yeah.
So
Frighteners too. Frighteners is funny.
Yeah.
And God, I love that movie. And that was, for me, that's like the perfect blend of the comedy and the horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I watched The Frighteners as a kid a lot. It was only one of the few horror movies my mom would let me watch, and man, I loved it.
Yeah, as much as I like ridiculous slapstick humor, I love my horror stuff to be based a little more in reality, and to be just to have that just a tinge more realism.
Yeah.
So, like, things like this and, like, things that are very off-the-wall comedy, I find myself not enjoying as much.
So, Derek dies, cracks his head open. Giles is kidnapped. After Giles is kidnapped by Giles runs up to a house, and he gets kidnapped by the house. The chef, you know, another comical scene, just punches him in the head with the stupid sound effect. And then Giles wakes up and he's in a oil drum with an apple in his mouth, being marinated like a Sunday roast, like the roast of the day. And
good old soup.
We meet Lord Crumb, and he tells Giles he will be the feast for tomorrow's celebration. Dun dun dun. And then Peter Jackson strangely slits his own throat, but doesn't die in this scene, which is also, like, I think this is the point of the movie where it just got to the point where it was just being overdone. It was just the same thing. At this point, it's like, it's the same trick. It's like, okay, let's move on. I've seen this twice now. Now we're doing it again. And this is the point of the movie where I was like, all right.
But then after this, then we realize that Derek isn't dead. He just
Yes.
needs to shove his brains back into his head, which I was like, this is super dumb. It needs to stop. But it becomes a recurring scene after scene after scene.
I think it happens 4 times.
Too many times.
Yeah.
Puts the brains back in, gets to the car, puts the hat on, passes out. Gets out of the car, passes out, puts the belt on his head, passes out.
But when he's at, like, he gets to his van, which is like some weird double-decker stand-up van with like the Beatles from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club or whatever it is.
That's a trademark for Jackson.
I was like, what in the world?
I know. I was like, I don't know why. Kind of into it, kind of want it, but why?
So that van that Derek drives is a 1961 Thames 5 CWT wheelchair converted van, and it belonged to Peter Jackson. Of course, IRL. Of course, Peter Jackson would be driving around that weird ass converted van.
How else is he going to get the camera equipment in?
But did he have Sgt. Pepper's band already in there?
Yes.
God, that when I saw that, like, it made me. I laughed so hard because I was like, there's no context to this whatsoever. No one brings it up. No one talks about it. They're just like, oh, move on over, Paul. How's it going, Ringo? And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's such a fucking weird car. It just comes back to this movie is just, I'm just making a fun movie with my friends. Like,
no, literally.
Yeah.
Everything in this movie, I'm like, you know what? If I were to make a movie with my friends, it would probably be just as weird, and people would be questioning, like, what the heck is this? And it would just be something that my friends and I came up with that we were like, oh my God, what if we did this? And we just started laughing, and we did it because we're like, whatever, we're making our own movie.
We've run into that sort of issue, I guess, maybe, with Rocky Horror, because we want to do like video things, like mini trailers to show before we do the movie, or if we want to send them off to a convention or something. And we have that trouble where it's like, all right, is this funny just for us? Or is this funny for an audience? And that's exactly what I felt watching this. I was like, yeah, I can feel that I'm making this with my friends and we think this is really funny. And you, like, after reading that they had no script, it's like, okay, yes, I see that. Because this is what we would have made.
When I was in high school, I made, probably 20 different short little films. And I still have 60% of them, like, saved in my computer I could go watch. And showing people and watching them with my friends I made it with, big difference. Huge difference.
Could we do a little social experiment? And I need to see these, and then I will report back.
I will show you some of them, but a lot of them are just like stupid. Like, we're gonna make a movie trailer about zombies. We're gonna make a movie trailer about a home invasion. There's the stupidest one. Not to get too much off topic, was I was an assassin and I am just in a full-on wetsuit the entire time.
Yes. No, like that's the kind of that's literally that's the kind of humor that Peter Jackson and his like buds did in this. They were like, what if you wore this weird outfit, like their tactical gear? You know?
Yeah.
That tactical gear, I was like, you're just putting on ski masks and like what are those vests you put on? What are they called when you go swimming or you're on a boat?
Life vest.
A life vest. Yeah. They're literally, they painted like a life vest black and they're like, this is our tactical gear. And they put on like sneakers and their pants were tucked into their socks.
In case of scorpions. I mean, they're in New Zealand.
There's
Are
no
there
scorpions.
scorpions?
There's no deadly animals or insects in New Zealand that could harm you. Actually, there's one deadly animal. The platypus is the only poisonous animal in New Zealand. I guess?
In case of a platypus attack.
Yeah. Oh, and the lighting. Okay, so and they go inside the kitchen. The lighting is like they just had their car lights on outside the window and then one really bright light in the room because everyone's like squinting for how bright it is in the room and he's just filming them. But they attack one of the aliens. This is still probably I thought was the funniest scene, and it's not even that funny. But they attack, an alien comes in the kitchen when they're in their full gear, and they attack him. They kill him, they rip his head off with his spine. The guy kicks it out the window, and he's just like, still got it. I'm just like...
Ozzy was the best.
Yeah.
All of his buds were phenomenal actors.
Yeah.
Like, I believed all of them as actors, and Ozzy was just like this Mad Max, wanted to just have fun. And like, okay, I know this is New Zealand. People from Australia / New Zealand have this insane positivity and amount of energy where you're like, let's fucking do it. You know, you want to do this and that? Yeah, it's going to be beaut. You ever been in a gunfight? It's going to be beaut.
Big side note. Either of you watch Bob's Burgers?
I do not. I've seen a few episodes.
Okay, well, Steph, you know the side character. I don't remember his name, but he's the kid from Australia, and Tina has a huge crush on him. He is like the sweetest thing, and he's like always positive.
Yes.
The funniest things to say. I want to watch you all day.
Well, you know, they have to be positive in Australia because everything wants to fucking kill them there. They have to look at the bright side of things.
Ozzy reminded me of my buddy Steve from Australia, who can go out drinking until 3 a.m. and then get up and run a marathon like ain't no thing.
Jesus. Just threw up
Yeah.
a little in my mouth. Bringing us up to the next scene. Fucking Frank puts on the alien's clothes, but doesn't take off his tactical gear, so he looks like a fucking marshmallow in a blue shirt. It's the weirdest fucking... I don't know why he didn't just take off his tactical gear, but he just puts it on over, and it's just like folding into his life vest.
That was funny, though. That was really funny.
Yeah, it was... So he goes out, and Lord Crumb is giving his big evil speech. He's giving a employee appreciation speech about how the employees did a great job harvesting the humans and that their fast food chain. He's like, we're going to have the best Crumb's Country Delights in the galaxy because that's going to be the new food item on the menu.
We'll show our competitors.
Yeah. Essentially, the humans are becoming value meals for his fast food chain. This scene, I just feel like he put in there just cuz, but I did not understand why the alien threw up in a bowl and then everyone drank it.
Yeah, there was no reason. They just all of a sudden did it. I was like, okay, well, if there was a reason, I could get behind this, but because they literally made no mention of it.
They picked him up and put his head over a bowl. He threw up blue-green oatmeal into a bowl, and then everyone drank it like it was the fucking punch at Jonestown. They just kept drinking it.
It was a bowl of yogurt and muesli with green food coloring.
What the fuck is muesli?
It's
a
like
cereal.
oats. Yeah, it's like oats and like bits of like dried fruit and stuff. So it's chunky.
Chunky bits.
Yeah.
So when I'm old and I need fiber, that's what I'm going to be eating. And then it comes around and Frank has to drink it. And he drinks it and he fucking loves it. But that's the last time it's ever brought up, talked about anything.
Yeah.
His sound effects, there were lots of burps and like slurps and
that's the other thing that I can't exactly get behind. It's the comedic sound effects. It's like, all right, yeah, that's
What does
too much for
What
me.
does Ozzy say? Did you have to eat some junk?
yes.
Or Mr. Crumb, oh, I'm lucky I got a chunky bit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's
Yeah.
just fucking on his nose.
I think this like again like circles back to Peter Jackson just wanting to do special effects because he had to make a puppet face of himself where you could control it with a hand and then just have a hose spewing out the yogurt muesli mix.
Yep.
Okay, so this next after this though, the next scene is a scene that really just, I was like, this is just the weirdest way to end this scene and move to the next one. They find Giles and rescue him, and then they all say goodnight.
Yes, this is my biggest yep.
So the aliens are like, good night, Lord Beth. Good night, Lord Crumb. Good night, Robert. Good night, Lord Crumb. Good night, Giles. Good night, Ozzy. And does Ozzy, Frank, Barry, and Giles just sleep in the kitchen and then wait till the morning to finish the raid? I mean, why did they just not leave at this point? Why did they stay at all? Why did they let everyone get a great night's sleep? It was so confusing.
Yes, you hear the alien saying goodnight, and then they save Giles, and then as they're walking out, all of a sudden it's daylight, and there's aliens everywhere patrolling with guns.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know.
Time.
Yeah.
They're aliens. I don't know.
They ate some chunk and they went to bed.
And all of a sudden, before you know it, boom, it's daytime.
My absolute favorite scene, though, is right after this. It's the morning. All the boys are, like, getting ready to do the raid that they never left the house in, for whatever fucking reason.
Well, they
So
weren't even there to raid. They were there to save Giles. They were literally there
Yeah.
to go in quiet. They said, let's go in quietly and come out quietly. Go in, save Giles, and go out quietly.
And they never left. But the next morning, they're, like, starting their raid on the house for whatever reason. And
They're just trying to exit, Patrick. They're literally
they're
just trying. They are just trying to
go.
exit.
Oh, so they go upstairs.
Yes, exactly. And this is my other issue with it. I was like, you guys went out. Okay, you can't go out the front, but what about the back or a window? Like, go out the window where Ozzy kicked the head of that alien. Like, it's on the ground floor. Why in the world are they going up the stairs?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's supposed to be like making a little jab at the trope of, you know, girls in slashers, like, oh, I'm gonna run up the stairs because, you know, that always works out for them.
But they go upstairs and they open one of the bedroom doors, and there's two aliens sitting on the ground playing patty cakes wearing 3D glasses. But then there's tons of aliens just wearing 3D glasses for some reason. But that's what kicks off the battle scene between aliens and the boys, and boy, is it a long battle scene.
Yeah. it is.
The gun sound effect is something I never want to hear again in my life.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not even that good of a battle scene. It's always like, I mean, the practical effects were extremely well done on the scenes.
Yes.
Like, for how the budget, everything is done very well. But it is like, you think it's going to end, and then, oh my god, there's a guy behind the trash can. And then you think it's going to end, and all of a sudden there's 10 more aliens. And then you think it's going to end, and now there's an alien in a bush. And then it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Just like The Hobbit.
When I watched this, it took me a handful of times because, you know, just being tired with children, I would watch it. And because there were long stretches of like, yeah, this is the same kind of thing that's happening or nothing's really going on, it was easy for me to fall asleep. So I saw the end only once. And then today when I was at work, I was kind of watching it again. I was like, man, yeah, there is a lot of the same nothing kind of going on for the last bit.
That whole ending battle just goes on. And eventually the aliens get out of their human forms, which I fucking love the design of the aliens.
I was so impressed because, again, Peter Jackson had to make all these outfits, these masks and stuff.
Yeah.
They were really good.
But why did he make the aliens' asses so thick? Why?
I know. I was just imagining him like making didn't he make them in his mom's kitchen? Did I read that right?
Yeah.
And because like his mom's oven was only so big, that's why the heads have like a slope to them.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because he had to make them so they could fit in her like cute little New Zealand oven.
So I just imagine Peter Jackson in his mom's kitchen making these asses. And just like making the first one and like, yeah, this is what you're gonna wear. I'm just over and over and over.
I understand, like, the aliens' body parts are, like, all out of proportions. You know, they got big bellies, they have weird shoulders and weird head. But did you need to make the asses so voluptuous? I mean,
Voluptuous, they're like bony. They're like weird
They're
rocks
very
coming out of.
bumpy.
Yeah.
they look like butt implants. That's what they look like to me.
Oh,
Gone
Like,
wrong.
Yeah, gone very
Yeah.
wrong.
I do like how he had like when Lord Crumb, something happened to him and he couldn't keep his human form. So everybody else, all the other aliens lost their human forms. So they kind of ripped through their shirts with their alien form. And I love how they had the two like butt cheeks like ripped through like
Yeah.
perfectly to like the back pockets of your jeans like ripped off.
It's like in Jumanji when the little boy he turns into a monkey and then he has
Yeah.
to rip his pants to get his tail through.
Yes.
But they finally reached their alien form, and then it's back to the gun battle again.
Again, yeah.
Again.
But then there's that one scene where like Derek, as he's driving in his converted van with the Beatles, they drive down an alien.
Oh, there's actually a funny thing about that scene. When they were filming that scene, the camera guy was on the hood of the car. Peter Jackson was driving, and when he drove into the grass, they didn't see that there was like a tree stump. So they actually just like
Oh my
hit it, and the
God.
camera guy flew off. No one got hurt, but still, be some scary shit.
DIY
Yeah.
filmmaking, man, you know?
But this is another part where Derek finally loses his actual brain piece, right? He steps on it, so he can't put it back into his head, or he attempts to put it back into his head. I love when he pulls out his chainsaw, he goes to like the calculator that's just in the back of his car and he puts in the code.
Yeah, but real quick before that, when they run over this alien and blood goes splattering, there's a cute scene where he does a windshield wipers in front of Paul McCartney's face.
Right?
And it's so good.
Yeah, it was first in front of John and then Paul. I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're getting at.
Paul McCartney is probably never going to be in a horror movie, and you're like, but you are, haha. But yeah, Derek brings out the chainsaw, and I was like, perfect. I love chainsaws.
Evil Dead.
Right? Yeah, that's what I kept thinking of. Yeah. Especially when he was like, he fell down onto Lord Crumb and he was like cutting through him.
That was cool.
It reminded me of a scene from Ash versus Evil Dead where Ash is in a morgue and something, not with a chainsaw, but something similar to that kind of happens. I was like, man, yeah, I could definitely see the Sam Raimi influence.
That was such a cool scene coming down from the ceiling through the top of him, though.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
To give some context, what ends up happening is this heritage house is a spaceship. Ozzy and Frank manage to like kill more aliens. You know, they get their rocket launcher. They launch, they kill some of the aliens with this ridiculous rocket launcher and
a sheep.
And a sheep. They managed to blow up a sheep. I mean, it is New Zealand. But Derek gets into the house and Lord Crumb tries to get away in the house. But he's got Derek as a stowaway, and Derek comes, uses his chainsaw to cut a hole and literally goes right into Lord Crumb and then comes out covered in blood saying, I'm born again.
I'm born again. And then he puts on Lord Crumb's skin and goes to the alien planet's home planet to, I guess,
Yep.
kill them all.
I'm coming to get you, bastard.
And pretty much all the budget probably went to this whole ending scene with the spaceship, because, I mean, there was, like, a fan at the ending scene with the spaceship, like, blowing fucking Frank and Ozzy as they're holding onto the tree. They're like, ah! Which they actually had a big fan and were, blowing stuff.
So in the BBC doc, Good Taste Made Bad Taste, their parents had friends with this heritage house. They allowed them to film there. they made a replica of the house. So they had to build like a house, the outside of it at least. And then they made 2 other versions of the house that were smaller to film the other scenes. They made one that was like, 2 feet by 2 feet to do the scenes. Obviously, like when they're in space and it's spinning, we know that's a model. But even the scene where the house is being lifted up, I mean, that was all like recreated. So it's pretty like interesting that there's like 4 versions of this house.
Yeah.
Good for Peter Jackson.
Right? Yeah. Have either of you heard about his ideas for having a trilogy?
Of Lord of the Rings?
No.
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 A trilogy of this?
Bad taste.
No.
Yes. So in 1993, this was his idea. He told this during an interview that in Bad Taste 2, the heroes of the first film would travel to an alien planet to save alien hunter Derek, played by Jackson. In Bad Taste 3, the aliens planned to enact revenge on Wellington with a spectacular aerial battle over the city with dozens of flying houses, buzzy bees, and Santa Claus.
I fucking love Peter Jackson. I fucking love him.
wait, Holly, wait, reverse. In the third one, wait. What does the aerial scene include?
A spectacular aerial battle over the city with dozens of flying houses, buzzy bees,
buzzy bees, like a bumblebee, like
yes,
okay,
yes,
bumblebees,
and Santa Claus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fuck it, why not?
I fucking love Peter Jackson. Fucking love
When
him.
you're Peter Jackson and you get to number 3 in your trilogy, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Bees and Santa Claus. Let's do this.
God damn it. But that's bad taste. That's bad taste, guys.
There's nothing else we could say beyond that. So I think we should just rate this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's rate this by
Peter Jackson green chunky vomit. 1 to 5 pounds.
how many cups of it would you drink?
Okay, how many cups?
How many cups full? Let's start with you, Holly.
I had a hard time thinking about this because this is definitely not my brand of humor. Like I said before, I tend to like my horror comedy based a little more in realism. Think like Shaun of the Dead, kind of like goofy comedy, but this could happen. This is a very realistic thing. So the first time I watched this, it was really difficult, but then thinking, all right, this is Peter Jackson. I grew up watching The Frighteners, which I love. I love Lord of the Rings. I know what he's capable of. So this was him on a budget. If I were to make a movie with my friends, which is exactly what he did, this is what it would be. And seeing all of the special effects, I was like, man, you can tell that he has something. So even though this isn't the kind of movie I would seek out, I probably wouldn't go see it, if it were playing at a movie theater or something. I wouldn't go out of my way to see it. I'm still going to give it 3 cups because he put a lot of love into this, and despite what I personally feel, you can see what the love that he has for filmmaking, and I really appreciate that, and I can see why other people appreciate it.
Steph?
I also am going to give it 3 cups out of 5 cups of Peter Jackson yogurt muesli green colored vomit. And echoing a lot of what Holly said, not quite my humor. I do like my horror comedy with some realism in it. Like, it lost me with some of the scenes, but I definitely, you can see how much Peter Jackson loves being a goofy filmmaker, and he has a lot of creativity, a lot of ingenuity, and the fact that this took 4 years, I think about my life in 4 years and how different I could look. I mean, his ability to keep this This movie takes place in a day. Coincidentally, October 31st, which is also Peter Jackson's birthday. So this movie takes place in a day, but it took 4 years to film. Like, one of his friends couldn't shave. He could shave once a week for 4 years. So lots of appreciation for everything, for the process behind this movie. It's very cool to see how he did this in his 20s, a young director, filmmaker, and how he built stuff and then got himself international recognition. And then to see where he's at today is inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this 3 cups as well, and mainly for one reason is, nowadays when someone makes their first movie, they try to make it so serious with the best equipment, and they try to get decent actors, and they just try to make it as like good as possible. And I think that has to do with a lot of how nowadays people view films. They want it to be serious, and everyone's like, oh, everything needs to look good. I need dolly shots, I need drone shots, I need this and that. But this movie proves that you don't. You could just have fucking fun with your friends and put effort into it, and other people will like it. Like you said, Steph, seeing someone go from this to where they are now with 11 fucking Oscars is really inspiring.
It really is.
You don't need to have the best equipment. You can have a shitty 25-year-old 16mm camera and make something.
Yeah, I mean, not to take away from your opinion, Patrick, but what Peter Jackson did in 1980 would not hold up today in 2020.
Is that because of viewers? Viewers are asking too much of people. Like the term of the idea of an indie film is a $2 million film, not a $10,000 film. Now, granted, there are some films that are coming out today that are, $100,000, and they're great, sure. But I'm not saying people can't do that, but I think the idea of having pressure of audiences not liking it and people kind of caring about, in this day and age of, it's going to be on YouTube and it's going to be this, and I have to make it so much better than everyone else's, or it's going to get just lost instead of just having fun with it, takes away from the artistic process and the idea of having fun, because it's not fun at that point, right? It's like you're struggling so hard to please people you don't know in the audience because you're like, oh, I need them to move me forward. Where this was, Peter Jackson was just like, yeah, I made some alien costumes and have some fun. Now, yeah, it was a different time, but still, I don't know, I just think everything's a little too serious nowadays. Like, when I write scripts with my cousin, he's always thinking about, well, what do you think the audience is going to think of this? Which is good to a point, and is bad to a fault, right? I think it could be played both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. There is you're always walking that line of, am I doing this for me? Am I trying to just please the audience? And I think it's Peter Jackson's heart, and also a little bit of the blessing of the time that he made this, where this was able to get some recognition.
The stars aligned perfectly for him with the release of this movie. He's a very lucky and charismatic individual.
I gotta say, it's inspiring to hear a story of someone working 4 years on something that they were passionate about. They did it on weekends because people had full-time jobs, and it came out successful.
Yeah. Despite the time that you're making it, the fact that you can actually still have that passion for something. You have no idea if it's going to go further than, oh, this is something my friends and I made. I'm going to show it to my other friends. The fact that you have that passion is amazing, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Fuck the audience. Do what you want. That's what I say.
Yes. Make yourself happy. Do it for the love of it.
Exactly.
Get all those inside jokes between you and your friends, because who cares? It's funny.
Yeah. Someone else out there is gonna love it. It doesn't matter how many.
That was bad taste.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And don't forget to check us out on Instagram and the Facebook. Holler at us at horrormelee@gmail.com, or check us out on horrormelee.com. Let us know what leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Once the Fast Food Authority have checked the samples and issued the mass slaughter permit, this grotty little planet will tremble under the full might of the Lord Crumb restaurant chain. Within a year, the giant mincer will descend from the sky, the sun reflecting from its silver lids, and no army on Earth will be able to stop the noddy burger machine. I see the gruel is ready.